What's going on, guys? This is Matt, and I recently made some updates and changes to my personal Ryzen 7 based PC, which is sitting right there. So I figured I would make a video and kind of explain what parts I changed and why I changed them. Also, as you may be able to tell, this video is going to be in a little bit different format than my usual videos. What I'm going to be doing is a more traditional type video with A-roll of me talking and B-roll of the components. So if you guys like this format, let me know in the comment section down below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what parts I changed and why I changed them. So the first thing that you probably will be able to see if you've followed my channel and followed the progression of my personal PC is that I've changed the case. Now, before I was using the Johnsbow C2, which is a really inexpensive, very compact, and very good looking micro ATX case. And when I found it online, it kind of was like my dream case because it fit a micro ATX board. It was very compact, it had a full aluminum build, and it was pretty inexpensive at under $60, and also very unique compared to a lot of the chassis that you see on the market. Now, once I got it in hands, I began to realize there were a lot of limitations, especially with cooling, because there was only one spot for a fan on the entire system, and that meant that exhaust had to be completely handled by the power supply, which was something that I really wasn't a big fan of, and I really wanted to both overclock my Ryzen 7 1700 as well as keep the system really quiet, which was not happening with that. Things ran very hot even at stock speeds, and also was very loud under load. So the case that I changed everything over to for now, I'm not sure if this will be the permanent resting place for my personal computer, is the Geek T810 Atx Pc Case. Now, you've probably never heard of Geek. They're a company that makes relatively limited runs of computer cases. They don't mass produce them, and they're kind of unique in the way that they're made out of all acrylic panels and kind of these aluminum extruded bars. And I'll definitely have B-roll of all this stuff. And what's also kind of unique about them is that the cases come flat packed and you have to assemble them yourself. So if you're someone like me who really enjoys doing DIY stuff, putting stuff together, then it was an enjoyable experience. It did take a little bit of time, around an hour and a half. But if you're someone who just wants to like put your computer together and be up and running with games, I wouldn't really recommend this case. But the thing about this case is it's pretty unique in that it doesn't really follow the exact designs of a lot of stuff. It's got more of a test bench style where it's laying on its side, and it's also pretty compact for an ATX case at just over 27 liters, which to put things into perspective, the Fractal Design Nano S, I believe it's called, their micro ATX case, is just under 27 liters, and this is just over 27 liters, and this fits a full ATX motherboard, up to a 240mm radiator in that side, and a 120mm radiator in the back. So it's got a pretty fair amount of support for hardware, as well as a relatively unique design and a very compact format. So I will definitely be having a full review of this case, but so far for $65, I think this case is providing a pretty good value for the money, along with a unique compact ATX layout. Moving on to the second big component that I changed, and that's the motherboard. Now, this is going to take a little bit of explaining, but before this, B350M Pro VDH, which is an MSI board that I got for really cheap, like $55 after rebate, I was using an A320 board from ASRock, and the reason I was doing that is because I wanted to test out and see what the cheapest AM4 board on the market was like, and I'll have a video about that coming up very soon. And other than not being able to overclock, it really has a fair amount of features, but I really wanted to be able to overclock my 1700 and just get that little bit more of free performance out of it. So I decided to go with the B350 chipset. Some of you may ask, why not get an X370 board? One is that I don't ever plan on running SLI or dual GPU, so that's kind of the biggest draw of the X370 chipset. Along with number two is my favorite form factor of motherboards is micro ATX, as it's a good value, gives you plenty of expansion for my needs, as well as it's usually a little bit cheaper, and there aren't any X370 boards that come in a micro ATX form factor, which is weird because there are X370 micro ATX boards. This board has all of the features that I need, and like I said, it was on sale for only $55 with a $10 rebate, so $65 up front, but still for a B350 board with 4 DIMM slots, Ultra M.2 support, full 16x PCIe slot with 2 1x PCIe slots. I mean, it's really full featured and has a good amount of I/O and fits all of my needs really well. Currently, I only have 16 gigabytes to 8 gigabyte sticks, but I'm starting to see the limitations of that. So having 4 slots means I can just pop in 2 more 8 gigabyte sticks for 32 gigabytes, still remain in dual channel operation, and I will be able to have a much more comfortable experience in Premiere Pro. So yeah, the MSI B350M Pro VDH so far has served me pretty well. And if you guys want me to make a full video about that motherboard, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below, and I will do so because it's a relatively new motherboard and I think it's providing a good amount of value for the money. So moving on to the next major item that I changed, and that's the cooler. Before, I was using a AMD Wraith cooler, not even any of the newer generations. I was using the last generation Wraith cooler that came with like the 6350 and some of the AMD APUs, and that was doing fine at stock speeds, but even at stock speeds that got a little too loud for my taste. So what I decided to do was get a Cooler Master Master Liquid 120, which is a $35 120mm all-in-one liquid cooler after rebate, $10 rebate, but still. And by getting this cooler, I think it looks pretty decent. I don't think it's the best looking AIO on the market, but for $35 you can't go wrong. And this allows me to do a few different things. The first is that it allows me to run the system overclocked. I'll talk about the overclock in a little bit, but not only does it allow me to give it to a comfortable overclock for my needs, but it also runs very, very quiet. One thing I was worried about is that there was going to be a lot of pump noise because I've had problems with other AIOs. Sure, you're using liquid cooling, you don't have to run fans as fast, but a lot of times the pumps will be so noisy that it kind of negates the sound benefit of going liquid cooling. But the pump so far on this has been really quiet, and also on the block/pump itself, it has a white LED, which I think looks pretty nice. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetic of the kind of ridged tubing, and if you go up 10 or 20 bucks in Cooler Master's Master Liquid series, you'll be able to get a cooler with kind of the sleeve tubing and thicker radiator and stuff like that. But for my needs, this works perfectly fine, and I'm not sure how long into the future I will use it. But yeah, so in terms of other components, I'm still using an RX 460 while I decide what kind of GPU I want to get, because I'm really conflicted. I waited for Vega, and then Vega happened, and the value's really iffy, and also you can't even pick up a Vega GPU. I game on a FreeSync monitor, so I really was wanting to go AMD, but I may just crack down and either try to buy a second-hand RX 480 or something, or may just go 1060 or 1070 again. I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think of that in the comment section down below. But honestly, at 1080p with an RX 460 in the games that I play, they run perfectly fine. Overwatch, I'm seeing around 100 FPS average with the 1700 in the RX 460, and with FreeSync, that's a really nice experience, especially coming from playing on a 60 Hertz display. Also in the system, I added 2 of the Cooler Master RGB LED fans. Now, this motherboard does have RGB LED support, but it's only one pinout, so I'm waiting on a RGB splitter to come in before I can take full advantage of those. As well as I switched back from the SFX PSU I was using in the Johnsbow C2 to the EVGA 850B2 I was using before my C2 rig. And also I'm still using a 512GB OCZ VX500 drive and I offboard any large storage onto external drives, but that storage situation is getting kind of iffy, so I'm definitely going to be looking into either a NAS option or some sort of external RAID array. In terms of overclocking, I haven't had too much time to play around with things, but I was able to pretty quickly dial in a 3.8 gigahertz overclock across all cores, which did give me a noticeable bump in both single-threaded and multi-threaded performance, a couple hundred points extra in Cinebench R15, and some of you may be wondering, well, 3.8 gigahertz doesn't sound that much, especially when you consider there's a 3.7 gigahertz boost clock out of the box. But the thing is that 3.7 gigahertz isn't across all cores. If you run something like Cinebench that takes advantage of all of the cores, or something more realistic like video rendering or video encoding, then it's only going to run at 3.2 gigahertz if you leave it at stock speeds. So that 0.6 gigahertz boost is something like a 15% increase in performance, which is a pretty noticeable jump, and that's kind of free performance. So if you have a Ryzen CPU, all of them are unlocked. I would recommend just trying to overclock a little bit. Even if you have the stock cooler, you're going to get a probably 10 to 15% performance boost, unless you're using like an 1800X or like a 1500X. It's going to be harder to get that big of a jump in performance, just because those are already clocked pretty high. Now, I may try to make another video where I go ham and try to overclock this to around 4 gigahertz or something, but honestly, I'm not even sure it's going to go that far, and I'm not sure if it's going to be worth the time and effort and resetting the CMOS and everything. I may do it, and if you guys are asking a lot in the comments section, then I will definitely do it. But from what I've heard, most Ryzen 7 1700s get to about 3.9 gigahertz max, 4 gigabytes if you're really lucky, and that's with a lot of voltage. So at 3.8 gigahertz, I'm actually on stock voltage. Things are running pretty cool, and more importantly for me, things are running very, very quiet. Even under an intense load like video encoding or gaming on games that support a lot of CPU cores, this entire system's staying almost whisper quiet, which is really nice, and the fan profiles out of the box for the motherboard are actually really nice, as well as the 850B2 is not having to push itself very hard, so it's also staying very quiet, which I'm kind of happy to give up a smaller system to go to a larger system if it means it's a lot quieter. The reason I did go with a smaller system to begin with is I actually do bring my PC around a lot of different places, which is a reason why a lot of people want to go small form factor. But honestly, this is pretty much as small as I need it to be, and I may actually move to a case that's in between the C2 and this one. We'll have to see. That may be an upcoming video, because I've got a Region-Tech Sticks coming in, which is aluminum, so it's very light. It's kind of in between this one and the C2, and seems to be a case that'll fit my needs really well, but we'll see that once it comes in. But yeah, I think I have told you guys everything I wanted to do about my recent PC upgrades. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, as well as consider subscribing for more PC and tech related content in the future. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.